By the age of 29, she had a net worth of $100 million. Let me say that again. By the age of 29, she had the net worth of $100 million.
I am proud of the decisions that I did make when I was in my 20s, even though I'm still in my 20s, but in my earlier 20s, because I actually think that they led to a lot of the success I had. So I spent a lot of time trying to dissect like what prepared me for this opportunity to run a company of this size and to grow it to as big as we have. And so I have dissected the things that I believe contributed to my success. The first one was investing all of my money into myself. The day after I graduated college, I moved out to California and I had like $5,000 and I signed a lease for an apartment and I didn't have a job, I didn't have anything, but I knew I would take that money and I would invest it into living in California where I could find an opportunity in fitness for myself. And I had no idea what I was going to do. I had no idea what I was going to do with the money. I had no idea how long it was going to last me, but I knew that I needed to use that money to get myself an opportunity outside of Michigan, which is where I grew up. And I just knew that there were way more opportunities in California. That is the mecca of fitness. And so if I can make it out there, I can make it anywhere. That's kind of how I was thinking. And as soon as I got there and I started actually making money from my job, which was selling at gyms, I remember the first time I finally had $8,000 in my bank account and I continued to invest every last dollar into myself, even when the thing that I was investing in maybe didn't work. I didn't expect them all to work, right? I didn't expect them all to be the right fit for me at the time. Never stop investing in yourself. I don't want to ever have a budget when it comes to investing in myself. And as long as I had the money in my bank account, I was like, I'll figure out a way to buy food and groceries this week and make rent. I'll figure it out. Like I need to invest in myself. That's the first and foremost thing. In my very early 20s, I realized that a lot of the friends that I had, though I loved them dearly and they were great people, weren't necessarily aspiring to do the same things in life as me. I started listening to Tony Robbins and Jim Rohn. I heard them all saying, you become who you hang out with. I looked at how each of those people affected me financially, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and I realized that a lot of my friends at that point in time were actually detracting from all those areas of my life rather than adding to those areas of my life. And I pruned my circle. I got new friends that I actually felt like I wanted to be like. And then eventually within, a year, 2 years, I realized, hey, maybe these friends actually, the friends that were good for me at one point, now aren't good for me at this point. And so as I moved through seasons of my life and the vision of who I wanted to be continued to get bigger and bigger, I had to prune my circle more and more because you want to make sure that you're hanging out with people that you want to be like. I took a sales job at a large Globo gym. And the reason I took that job is because every book I had ever read on being successful, what I noticed is that everyone actually started out in sales. I got the job. I want to say it's almost the #1 experience I had just because of how terrible it felt the whole time. Getting rejected on a daily basis, having people say no to me all the time, and being in a situation where if I didn't make money and I didn't make sales, I was gonna have to move back home to Michigan. That was probably the best situation I could have put myself in because it taught me that though it's very hard in the beginning, at first you suck, then you suck a little less, then you suck so little that you might actually be like decent, and then eventually you're good, and then eventually you're actually pretty good, and then one day you're actually great, and then one day you're a master. And it doesn't happen overnight, it happens over a very gradual timeline. And I think that if you can acquire the skill of sales in your early 20s, what you teach yourself is that you can generate income on demand. And that is something that you can go into any new situation, you always know that you can fall back on this skill. If you can sell something, you can always generate income for yourself. Selling also pertains to many areas that I've encountered later on. Like now, I don't sell necessarily clients, but I'm constantly selling people on ideas, selling my team on why they should do things, selling people on why they should believe in themselves. And so the skill of sales was always going to translate into other areas of life, and that's why it's such a valuable skill to get in your 20s. Learn from the mistakes of others. The only difference between humans and animals is that humans can learn from others' mistakes. They waste the time, you get the lesson. We don't have time to learn all the lessons ourselves. So what we want to do is be selective about the people we learn lessons from, and then take those lessons and assimilate them into our minds, into our bodies, into our belief systems. Anytime I hired a mentor, advisor, coach, I read a book by somebody that's more successful than me that I want to be like. Anything they said that was a turning point, that was a belief that they held, I just took it as my own. I think there is a good time to copy rather than create. And it's when it's copying others' beliefs, copying others' lessons, copying others' mistakes, we can just learn them now and we can have the success. The fifth one is getting comfortable being alone. My first experience with this was when I got an internship, and it was a really competitive internship. So they said, listen, we're gonna have like hundreds of people apply. They're only gonna interview 10, and then only 2 people get the internship, and they have to stay the entire semester at this resort. So I was really nervous, but I applied. Then they accepted that. They invited me for an interview. I had to fly out to California for the interview. And then 2 weeks later, they told me I got it. And I was really excited also because it was like this pristine internship. I was also so terrified because I had to go live there for however long. I knew nobody. I'd never been there before. I know my way around. And I went there, and it was so much worse than I could have imagined. The resort, they said, okay, you're not actually staying on the resort. You're staying in a cabin that's about 2/3 of a mile away from the resort in the middle of the woods. And I was like, you've got to be joking. I go out there, and seriously, it's in the middle of the woods. I don't have cell reception in there. I can barely use my computer. I'm all by myself in a cabin in the woods in the mountains. I would have to get up every morning around like 3:30 or 4 because I led these morning hikes, and then I worked until about 5:30 or 6, and then I would work out and I would do it all over again. And it was exhausting, and it was so lonely. But you know what happens once you get over the loneliness is that you find this place of bliss where you learn to know yourself. And that is something that I would never trade that experience for. I learned to be okay being alone with myself and actually enjoy being alone with myself and look forward to long times alone. I do not think that without that, I would be able to have done what I did from there on out, move to California, live alone, have different experiences where it pretty much all revolved around me being okay, being completely by myself, not having roommates, not having anyone to confide in. And I think that too many people in their 20s don't do that because it's super easy. It's so much more comfortable to have friends and support. All that stuff is so much better if you can first be alone and be okay with it. So that's what's most exciting for us. In terms of the business side, we're looking at acquiring 2 businesses a month, and we have...
Listen to what she just said. This is a girl that left home that was moved to California, had no job, no nothing. Just said, we're looking to acquire 2 businesses per month. That's a pretty dramatic growth. That's pretty freaking amazing. I think it's what's interesting, Layla, is you've grown comfortable saying those words, and that's pretty powerful, is that other people can be in that position. How much time did that take from the time that you were resetting your life?
I mean, it's been 7 years.
7 years. But the majority of the momentum has probably happened in the last 3, maybe 4 years, right?
Yeah, since 2018, I want to say.
So for the first several years, I remember seeing photos of you and Alex in, I don't remember, what was the car you guys had? You were driving around in this little teeny
old
car.
Prius, yeah.
You were driving around in an old Prius, cruising around. And now when you were driving around that Prius, did you guys have the vision of, we know this is going to work out, we just need to keep grinding out? Or was it like, we don't know, but we're risking it?
I think that it was, we both knew that we would be successful. We were not crystal clear as to what that was going to look like. We knew that we wouldn't stop until we succeeded. We just weren't like, hey, it's going to be gym launch. We stumbled into it. And then when we saw it, we're like, oh, this is it now. But we didn't stop trying. We didn't give up. And I think that's the main thing is, like, if you have that vision that you know that you're going to be successful, you don't give up.